and how it affects our lifestyle. I'm going to jump into our session right away today as we dive into an inspiring discussion, and it's on Beyond Borders, the Power of Travel. I'm thrilled to introduce our special guest, an expert in the field, Ian Grant, a seasoned travel consultant with over 30 years of experience in crafting unforgettable journeys across the globe. From curated travel packages and exclusive cruises to immersive tours and essential travel insurance, Ian has dedicated his career to making every trip a transformational experience for his clients. Beyond arranging itineraries, he truly believes that travel is a powerful way to expand perspectives, spark new ideas, and invest in one's growth. I'm especially excited to welcome Ian to our conversation today, not only as an esteemed travel consultant, but also as my brother-in-law. So let's dive into the ways that travel can enrich our lives, shape our minds, and help us explore both the world and ourselves. Ian, take it over and do a quick introduction of yourself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ian Grant, as Andrew said. Work with Rome Travel, which is located at 792 St. Clair Avenue West in Toronto, which is located, let's say, just west of Bathurst or east of Dufferin Street. I've been with the company now for over 30 years, and we do worldwide travel. I'm here today to try and assist you in your future travel plans and how to arrange it and things like that. So I look forward to the discussion, and I thank the group for having me on today.
Thank you very much, Ian. All right, gentlemen, who wants to go first with their first kind of conversational point with Ian?
You want to go, Stef, or you want me to take a shot at it?
Okay. Just kind of want to start off, as myself being 32, and I travel quite extensively. And the question is for Ian. How would you approach someone like myself to build an itinerary of, let's say, going to the Caribbean, let's say Jamaica, just for an example? How would you kind of cultivate a travel itinerary for myself and my fiance? Like, how would you kind of approach that? I would like to hear that from you because I never used a travel agent before.
I'm glad you mentioned that. You never used a travel agency before. Naughty, naughty, naughty. My first thing is recommend is to contact a travel agent. It's very important. We do our research on the products that you're about to purchase and experience. And a lot of times people go online like yourselves and you try to do the research, but you really don't know the ins and outs. Information sometimes is, as you know, there's a lot of misleading information out there. And you may buy a product online and you don't get the service, the experience of somebody. If there's an issue, you have a problem finding somebody to discuss your problem with. If you go to a travel agent like myself, we handle all that for you. We do look for a product that would suit your style, and we explain to you what your experience might be, and hopefully you'd be happy with the information that you receive from us. And you don't have any surprises, many surprises. I'm not saying things don't change, but you may not have the surprises when you get on the resort or if it's a cruise or wherever it is. So we look after all of that for you, and we try to explain everything from your time departing Toronto to your return.
That's a wonderful response. I think we have one question on the chat from Dr. Vibe. His question is, what shifts have you noticed in the travel market post-pandemic, Ian?
one of the biggest shifts is that everybody's looking for something for nothing. Again, people are a little bit, how should I put it? They're curious about doing things on their own because the industry is pushing people to deal direct, which is on the online business. And there's a lot of issues. I'm not saying that all the online machines are corrupt. And I use the word corrupt because there's a lot of cases where people do things online. And as I said early on, when it comes to, I have had instances where people went online and booked, and when they got to the airport, there were no tickets for them. So these are the things that are happening. And that is happening quite frequently too. But again, I always stress, and not because I'm in the business, but it's good to have an agent that you can trust and that can explain everything to you. The industry has changed in a sense, as I said before, everybody wants something for nothing. And I do not recommend that all the time. I always tell people you pay for what you get, you get what you pay for. A lot of people are trying to cut corners, and then you end up in trouble or being displeased with whatever it is you purchase. But that's one of my first things. That's one thing an agent can do for you. You may try to save your funds, but in the long run, you may not get the product that you really desire.
Yeah, you made some excellent points, Ian, because myself, I was watching something recently and someone was traveling to Paris and he didn't mention the service, of course, but he used some type of hotel savings website and he lost hundreds of dollars using it. And then when he landed in Paris, he had to figure out a hotel when he landed there. So it created this kind of snowball effect. So I do see what you're pointing out to the audience that, it's good to reach out to a professional like yourself or a travel agent to kind of help you mitigate those, potential risks or as you mentioned. My co-host, do you guys have any other questions you want to drop into Ian?
Sure. Thanks, Steph. Yeah, about that online booking. I've booked stuff online and had challenges. Actually, I just booked a hotel in Toronto. I'm actually in Jacksonville, Florida. And I paid for it. I've got a confirmation, but I haven't billed my credit card as yet. So I'm a little nervous. I don't want to land in Toronto in the middle of December, get to the hotel, and then find out that there's no room there for me. I had an experience a few years ago. I did the same thing. I booked to one of the hotel websites. I'm not going to call any names. I don't want to do that. When I got to the hotel, they couldn't find my booking. I had a full itinerary with itinerary number and everything. And then they put half an hour and they went back and forth. And eventually, they managed to rectify it. So I'm a little nervous. I do understand the whole, when you use the word corrupt, the corruption of not corrupting where the system is not as smooth as we think it is. But I want to bring another part to the conversation. So I'm a traveler. I'm not a tourist. I don't do tourist stuff. I don't like walking in sand barefoot. When I go somewhere, I look at it as a place. Okay, if I get stuck in this place, can I stay here and can I survive? Can I live? Can I create my own destiny here? I started traveling alone from the age of 6, and I have a very nomadic mother. So we moved around quite a bit through parts of the Caribbean. Since the pandemic, I've got a cousin on the call here. We got a lot of who lives in Europe. And I guess, I'm going to call him out. I mean, I know he's quite nomadic also. As a travel professional, do you meet a lot of people who are trying to relocate to different parts of the world, either temporarily or permanently? And how do you help them navigate that process? Like, as I want to move to Portugal and spend 2 years in Portugal, or I want to go to Peru. So as I come to you as somebody who, I'm tired of living in North America. I'm tired of, Toronto winters, and I'm tired of American politics. So I want to find somewhere where I don't have to deal with none of this stuff. how would you help me to navigate that process?
Well, I'll have to sit with the client and find out exactly what it is they're looking for, what they want to achieve at that destination. Then I have to do my research on the legal parts of it involved in it. There may be restrictions, there may be visas necessary, there may be there may be a time limit they will allow you, depending on the type of passport you have, things like that. So I have to sit with them and find out first before I move forward in booking anybody like that.
But do you find a lot of people who come to travel agents today come with that kind of question? That's the experience they're looking for? I mean, we've got the...
Not a lot.
Okay.
Not a lot. I think what people do first and foremost is they would probably, if they want to go to a country, they would probably visit there for a week or two first before making that leap to say they want to spend 6 months to a year there to get a feel of the place before they do that. So they may do a short trip just to get familiar with the destination. And because some countries have a lot of restrictions on what you can do and for how long you can do it.
Okay. Okay.
Thanks, Ian. Very interesting on some of the points that you brought up. And I know you yourself are a traveler and you have visited many, many, many places. So I just want you to kind of share, if you have a personal story that you could share, a memorable moment or a destination that could particularly illustrate the transformative power of travel that our participants can go to, somewhere that they may not have heard of, but really a story that you can come up with that, you know, what says really why people should do more traveling.
Most of my travels so far, there are two places that stands out up to today.
Yes, thank you.
Hello? Hello?
I just muted.
Yeah, go ahead, Ian.
You're
ahead.
good, Ian. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, as I said, one place that stands out for me is Russia. Before I went there, as we all hear a lot of negative news about Russia. And there's so much history in that place. If you like museums, there's so much to do there. The food is nice. The food is good, great food. The architecture, I love exploring, and as I do photography also, so I love sceneries, and I saw a lot of that there. Another place that I went to is Dubrovnik. Back in the day, it used to be called Yugoslavia. So Dubrovnik, Split, those areas. Italy is another place that stands out for me. I like the nightlife there. Also, when you go to places like Venice, I mean, I love walking the streets at night in Venice.
That's beautiful. That must be
it's
beautiful.
romantic and whatnot, So there are different areas. Another place that stands out for me is Brazil.
Mm-hmm. Should people be worried about the crime in Brazil?
It depends on how you travel. As again, I always recommend people go with a travel agent who knows the ins and outs, and go with a tour. Some people love to go and explore on their own, which is great if you're that adventurous. I try not to do that personally, especially if I don't speak the language. You could run into issues. You can walk into areas that you shouldn't be walking at night or daytime. So I always try to, if it's your first time going to a place, I always try to recommend that they go on organized tours.
Mm.
That way you should be safe. Plus, they explain every site you go to, so you learn a lot that way. But traveling is something. It's the best education you can get is to travel and see and explore.
I agree. I agree. So I just want you to, and if you can't, just let us know that if you can, but I just want you to peel back the curtain a little bit for our listeners. So I view you similar to what me, Ray, and Stefan do as advisors, where somebody will come to us and really rely upon the information that we give them to be accurate and help them towards our goal. So you mentioned earlier about doing research. Can you, without being you there at those countries, boots on the ground, what kind of tools, like how do you go about doing the research that you will make sure that somebody gets the type of trip that they're looking for?
I go to different websites.
Hmm.
I don't trust just one website to do my research. Because one thing I've learned is that some people's comments are different to others, even that's on the websites. You can look at sometimes 2, 3 different websites on the same country, and they vary somewhat.
Mhm.
So you try to, if I haven't seen it personally, then that's how I do my research. I go to different websites, government websites, most and foremost. Those are most truthful ones. So I don't depend too much on individuals who have been to a place. It's like a hotel. You go to a hotel, one person would say, "Oh, I loved it," and somebody else would say, "I hated it." Somebody will give a rating of 4 star here, and somebody else would say, "Oh, it's not worth a 2 star to me." So you have to, again, that's where we come in as travel agents. We do the research to make sure, and then we make a decision. And 9 out of 10 times we are very correct.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We have a question here, Ian, from one of our listeners. What percentage of your business is repeat customers? I mean, with 30 years in the business, I'm pretty sure you've got a lot of repeat customers, but is it half your business? Is it
No, I
25%?
would say a good 65% is repeat.
Okay, that's amazing. I have another question for you. I mean, for many of us, as the world has changed since 2020, sorry, people are now moving into different parts of the world. A lot of people are working virtually and remotely. When it comes to language, and you mentioned it, how concerned should someone be if they're planning to spend an extended period in a country where they don't speak the language? I mean, you mentioned being in Russia and Brazil. I'm not too sure whether you speak Ukrainian, Russian, or you speak Portuguese. But if I'm planning to spend, let's say, 6 months in Singapore, I'm going to work remotely, is language a really big issue in some of these countries to try and navigate it on a daily basis?
Most places do speak a little bit of English. I'll give you an example. It's like going to Quebec City.
Mhm.
I know a lot of them can
Oh,
speak.
hold on. That's a bad example because the French don't like speaking English. We all know that.
So that's what I'm coming to, right? But most countries you go to do have English speaking. If you are English speaking person, some people learn a little bit. Now they're using their phones to get translations and things like that. I'm not saying don't do it. I have, as a fact, right now I have some friends who are in India doing a tour of India, and they're not having any issues. But again, they're going on an organized tour for 2 weeks. So there's an English speaking guide, and most of the hotels they said they speak a little bit of English, so it's not an issue so much. If you're going, again, repeat that, if you're going on your own, doing your own travel, then that could be a bit of, unless you're very adventurous, that could be a challenge. Because I've had clients who didn't want me to do it. They wanted me to just get them from point A to point B, and they will do the rest. Fine. But when they got there were some issues, again, with language. Plus, they went into areas that they shouldn't, that I would not have recommended to them, but they wanted to do their own thing. So, you know, you have those clients which you help them as much as you can, but the rest is up to them whether they want to accept your help or not. I recommend not. I said, you know, do the safe thing until you get familiar with the destination. Then you can go back and do all stuff on your own.
That's an interesting point there, because kind of where you travel, there's certain cultural etiquettes. Like for instance, in Japan, they shake the hand on, I think, the left hand, not the right hand. So there's certain cultural etiquettes. Do you present that to travelers as well? Because I know in certain countries, there's certain etiquettes that you should be aware of. As far as like even another example where you pay money in Japan, they don't actually physically grab the money from your hand. You actually put it on some type of let's say like money holder, and then they grab it, the money holder. Do you advise clients still? I mean, yeah.
As much as I can, I would do that research for them and get them familiar with certain things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great point. From a cost perspective, I know everybody is worried about cost and inflation nowadays and being able to afford these trips. What has been the biggest driver in the increase in cost for trips, in your opinion?
That's a funny one, Andrew. No, it's the companies. Whether it's you don't want me to name names, but the companies that run these businesses, they would say, well, the destination hotels have lifted their prices, and it just continues, mushrooms from there, you know. And then the consumer is the one that has to end up paying, you know. So you do get some specials every now and then when they can't move the products, but it's not as much as it used to be, let's say 5-10 years ago. You know, everybody knows, you know, everybody now has a hard time trying to survive. It's taxes that's gone up. Everything is going up. You know, so some again, depending on the standard of the product that you're purchasing, that also determines how pricey it can get. I sometimes don't like to recommend most destinations for people to go into 3-star hotels, 2-star hotels, because there's a huge risk of not being pleasant. But whether it's the sheets that they get in the room, the service they get from the hotel guests, the hotel staff, you know, so there's a lot of things to take into consideration.
But mentioning stars and rating, is that a universal rating? Because I know from traveling that a 3-star hotel in Canada or the US is actually very different, excuse me, from a 3-star hotel in Cuba or the DR. Is that an accurate assessment?
That's very true. An example I can give you is a few weeks ago, I had some clients who went to Cuba, and they had a budget. They didn't want to go over the budget, which I tried to talk them out of, right? And they said, well, give me a 4-star hotel in Cuba. I said, pay a few dollars more and go to a 5-star. And they didn't want to go over the budget. So they went. I'm not going to refuse selling them it, but I gave them my opinion. That's my business. they went and they were not very happy with the accommodations that they got. And I think there were four of them. One of them who works at a hotel in Toronto said, "Well, we have a 4-star hotel in Toronto, but this hotel was nowhere close to what we have in Toronto." I said, "Uh-huh. That's why I offered you a 5-star hotel." Because it's a different culture. It's a whole different, Cuba is, with the embargo, has really had issues on the island, and still does. And then they had the blackouts a few weeks ago, which made things even worse again. So it's a struggle, but it's a beautiful country. They had, outside of the hotel, they had a wonderful time. And I love Cuba. I love the history. You go into Havana and places like that, or you take day tours to the different farms, and there's a lot to see there. But the hotel accommodation and the service and the meals that you get, the food is not like you will get in Toronto. So people have, these are things, again, that's where a travel agent can help you to make decisions.
Yeah. Set the expectation. I always refer to Japan because my recent travel, and I was already aware of, room sizing is not like here in Toronto. It's basically like 300, 400 square feet. You could touch wall to wall in certain places. So I think setting that expectation as a traveler, from the get-go, you avoid those kind of
Those letdowns.
frustrations and letdowns, when you travel. So that's a very important piece of traveling. I think people overlook, would you say, Ian? People overlook that. They don't set the expectations from the start.
Mhm. The same thing with Europe. There's some places in Europe where the rooms are not what like they are in North America.
Yeah.
And people get upset. But again, that's what they're asking for. And no matter how you try to talk them out of it, oh, I have a budget and this is what I'm going to spend. That's what I want to get. And they look at the pictures online and they see it, and they say, okay, it looks okay. But when they get there, it's a different story.
We have a question here, Ian. This is actually a very good question. Cruise travelers. I mean, there are a lot of people who love cruises. The question here is, I travel quite a bit, mostly in groups on cruises. How can you help us to navigate a one day or a few days to tour the country prior to boarding the cruise? So let's say you're going on a four-country European cruise. How can you help one of those cruise travelers determine, like how to navigate their port of their destination ports?
On most cruises, you do have, and a lot of them are offering it now, pre-booking of different tours at each stop. And you can explain to them, depending on what their interest is. You can explain to the client, I would recommend you take this tour or that tour. Again, you have to sit down with the client and work that out. But those, or you can wait. Again, the pricing may be different to when you get to the port and do it locally. Some people want to do it on their own again, but you can sit down with the client, depending on what the client is looking for. Some clients may just want to go and visit some museums at a port. Some may want to just go into the mountains and look at the greenery, the forestry. Depend on which country you go to.
So can you make those decisions while you're on the cruise, or they have to be made prior to leaving your country of origin?
Or you can do it on the cruise, because the cruise ships are on a cruise ship. They will offer all the land tours also. So that's possible.
Okay. Thanks for that question. That was actually a very good question. I've got a constant piece for us. I mean, the world is very different. It's been very different for a very long time. We see a lot of hot spots that pop up suddenly. Um, you know, you know, there's bombings in Kenya every now and then. We've got issues in the Middle East, in Turkey, parts of Europe. If somebody goes on a trip, let's say you go to, one of these very interesting, beautiful nations, and you get caught in unrest. As a travel professional, if the person booked through yourself, how do you guide them to navigate out of that situation or through that situation?
That's if they are on their own or if they're on a tour.
I'm the travel by themselves. Let's say myself and I
Or
booked
on
a trip to go. Yeah, yeah. I'm not part of a group. I just booked a. I'm a destination traveler. I don't like large tour groups and that sort of stuff. So
a
I
travel
booked my trip.
control. We can advise them of the possibilities of what's going on. Let's take it right now. God knows what will happen in the Middle East in the next few weeks or months, right? I think things are boiling up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I would, if a client came into my office today, and I would say, listen, there is some unrest in the Middle East, so you have to be careful where you go, and things may change by the minute as while you're there. Now, if you're out on your own, I could only advise you of the situation, whether it's there or whether it's Colombia. There's problems in Colombia or Nicaragua or any things like that. You have to be safe. You can go down, you can come to Toronto and run into issues. I mean, there's some places in Toronto I don't drive at night, to be honest with you, like I used to when I was younger, because I don't have that leisure anymore to be in areas that I don't feel safe. When you go to Europe, you have to be careful. Again, with pickpocketers, there's some pickpocketers in Europe, in different countries in Europe, that you have to be careful the way you walk around. So you could only advise the client, and the client will have to make the final decision whether they want to do it or not. Now, if there's an issue, you should always get in touch with the consulate, the embassy of your homeland. If you're Canadian, sometimes it's good to register with the embassy before leaving Canada. So in case of an emergency, that they can reach you and assist you wherever you are.
Yeah, that's a risk I think I'll have to live it now. I mean, there's so many countries you can end up there and end up in the middle of something that even in the US, I mean, there's shootings and
Yeah.
theme parks and that sort of stuff. So I mean, it's traveler, used to be buyer beware, now it's traveler beware. So you're right. I mean, you can go anywhere and be exposed to some level of violence or disruptive behavior. I'm a big jazz festival lover, but I don't like crowds. Like I'm very cautious when I've got large amounts of people around me. So I tend to always stay close to the exits, on the periphery, that sort of stuff. I don't want to be under the stage, and if something happens, um, growing up in the Caribbean, I've seen people throw bottles for no reason, just for fun of it, just for the fun of it, and that sort of stuff. So I mean, yeah, I mean, you made a very valid point there. But in terms of traveling and our quality of life, we look at travel as one of the way to expand our minds and cultures. I mean, you know, how do you see travel really impacting us in terms of how we see the world? I mean, you talk about doing photography, and I too do a bit of photography. I love doing street photography. Like how, as someone who's done this for 30 years, when you've met someone who came to you and you recommended a destination for them. A lot of people stay in their comfort zones. A lot of people they take the same trip. If you're from the Caribbean, you go to the same island. Every single year. You never venture out. You never visited Quebec City. You never went to, Hawaii. You never went to Morocco. When you've changed a client's perspective on travel, what was the conversation when they came back from that trip? How did they share the experience with you? Going somewhere where they would have never gone on their own. Okay, I mean, if you haven't done it, that's different. If you have done it, how did you find that experience, that conversation?
They were very grateful that I recommended certain things with their travel, things that they should do and they shouldn't do. And that's why I have repeat customers, because they trust whatever I say to them. It's very important. You have to build that trust over the years with clients. As I said, clients sometimes like to go out on their own, but you have to have a certain mindset to want to do that. There's out of 100 people, maybe 20 might be in that way to go on their own and do something, but the rest of the people they like to know what's going on, how to manage what their trip is. And that's what we're here for, is to advise and manage them as much as we can. Some things are, once you get to a destination, things, as you said, things can change, but the majority of I've not had someone come back to me and say, I did a bad job. I have not heard that in all my years. They're very pleased with my recommendations and the way I handle the business.
I have a quick question. Do you have any liability exposure for booking trips tour? Like, is there any exposure to you or your company?
Well, we book, there's a travel industry regulations that we all agencies have to follow. And that's another thing. I'm glad you brought that up, because insurance is very important. A lot of people love to travel without purchasing insurance.
It's crazy to me.
And you have to know the kind of insurance to purchase, because not all insurances will cover you for certain things. You misreading the fine print in most of them. And again, that's where, as a consultant, that's what we do to explain to the client, you're purchasing it, this happens, this is what I do and whatnot. So we are regulated. Okay, there's TICO. If there's an issue, I'm sure most of you may have heard of TICO, in case it's when airlines go out of business or things like that, and people get stranded. Again, we have to contact we do the fighting for them, for the client, to try and get whether it's reimbursed or whether compensation or something like that. So there is that we have to deal with. We pay into it every year.
Yeah. Well, folks, we almost, sorry, Steph, you have a question?
No, I just want to squeeze in one thing, because I was going to mention travel insurance too, and why is people reluctant to have travel insurance? Would you say was the reluctancy for them? Is it added costs? What is it?
Most people think nothing would happen.
Yeah.
That's human nature, right? But things do happen. I have lots of clients like that. They don't want to spend the extra $40 or $80 to buy insurance, because they can use that money when they get to their destination to do something, right? And depending on the package, it may be non-refundable or non-changeable, and when they end up, it's costing them a lot more than the cost of the insurance.
Yeah, that's usually the case. Ian, the time has gone by so fast. I mean, you shared some insights with us. We've got about 4 minutes left in the conversation. We'd love to have more questions from the audience. We do this every second Wednesday at 10:15. This is the first time we've actually had a guest on. Usually it's myself, Stefan, and Andrew who have the conversation. Well, first of all, it was Stef and Drew who had the conversation. I was the moderator. But then because these two guys had stuff to share, they brought me into their fold as part of the conversation. So we've done this now. I think this is our 12th conversation, Andrew.
Yep.
Yeah, so we've done this for a year. So we got a website. You can go and check the website out. Not website, sorry. We have the YouTube channel. Go check it out. This is our own conversation. But Ian is actually our first guest. So we want to thank Ian for
Round of
coming
applause for
on.
Ian.
You know what I mean? I know doing live conversations on Zoom is not everybody's forte. There's some discomfort. When I first started, I started on the Dr. Vibe show with Dr. Vibe, who's actually in the call about 3 years ago. And he can tell you, man, I was nervous as hell. I was sweating bullets. But I've gotten a little better. But I've got one last question, not question. I'm gonna put Ian in the hot seat now. So my go-to place, I want to go to Morocco. I want to go and spend a month or 2 months in Morocco, go to Marrakesh, and photograph the culture. It's been a dream of mine. Not a dream. It's my bucket list. It's one place I want to go. If you can choose 5 places, right? That everybody should go to at least once in their life, what would be those 5 countries? I'm not talking a cruise stop on a cruise ship. I'm talking spending at least 3 weeks in this place and really soaking up the culture, the food, the vibe, and just being part of that local environment. What would be those
Get your
5
pens
countries?
and paper, people. Get your pens and paper.
The first one I would say Russia, Italy. You mentioned one, Morocco. I personally have not been there yet, but it's on my bucket list.
We can go together then.
One of the other places that's on my bucket list that I haven't been to yet, I want to do a safari, which is that's either Kenya or Tanzania, you know. So, and I would say the last one, Brazil. You got to visit the Iguazu Falls in Brazil.
Okay.
It's the largest falls in the world. That's a sight.
Oh, we got one more question to sneak in right now, and you may have touched on this a little bit. This question is from Tara. What are your thoughts or advice regarding medical coverage with travel, and I guess specifically with vaccine and medical clearances?
That's a great question.
Again, it depends on the country. Some countries have certain things that you have to abide by. You may need vaccines. So if you're going to places like Africa or South Asia, again, that's where we do the research on the country to find out what is necessary. But it's always good. That's very, very important to whether you need a vaccination or not, to do that research, because medically, and again, that's where some countries do not accept you unless you have these vaccines. So this is where we do the research again, depending on the country that you're going to. Even I was just telling about my friends who are in India right now, and they got certain vaccines before they left. Just in case, as a precaution, you do that. And again, it's good to have medical insurance in case of an emergency.
Quick question on top of it. What kind of time frame would you recommend to people to say, give yourselves 2 weeks, a week to properly travel if they wanted to work with you? How long of a time frame would you give?
It depends on the country. Some countries you can do in a week. Some you need more time. I think if you can afford it, 2 weeks is I think it's enough to give you enough familiarization on the country that you're going to. But some countries you can go and do it in 1 week. There's some places that I've been to, I only went for 3 days, and I saw most of the place in 3 days. But those are small countries, to really get a feel of. But then I would go back again. If you're going, I'll give an example. If you're going to somewhere like Brazil or Australia or so. I think a 2 week trip at least would be sufficient. Or India, maybe my 17 days. Those are huge countries.
What is your repeat country? Where have you gone that you would go back more than once?
My personal,
Yeah.
putting aside my homeland, Grenada, um, Aruba. I've been to Aruba about 5 times. There's not a lot to do there, but it's beautiful beaches and food is great. People are friendly. That I have been to mostly Caribbean countries that I've been to that I've repeated a few times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Caribbean is beautiful. I mean, you know, the weather, the beaches, you know, the people, the food, you know, and I guess having Caribbean backgrounds, we're comfortable. Everybody looks like us, so we fit in easily. Yeah, I can appreciate that.
You see, the thing about for me to repeat our country, I have to, after working so hard that I need to go somewhere to relax. And I find relaxation in the Caribbean is getting the sun, getting the salt water. There's nothing better, healthier than that for me.
Yeah, I
Great.
agree.
Agree.
So how can people
I
get in
agree.
touch with you, Ian? Where could they find you and contact you?
My phone number, the office Rome Travel, the phone number is 416
I'll just put it in the chat.
654 2434.
So just repeat that again, Ian. I'm just going to put it in the chat.
Sorry, 416 654 2434, extension 304. And my email address is ian@romatravel.com, which is ian@romatravel.com.
I'm going to ask you a question. Do you deal with global travelers? So if somebody's living outside of Canada, can they use you to book their travel package? Okay.
Yeah.
So some of our listeners here are not necessarily in Toronto, necessarily in Canada. They're all over the world. I'm not in Toronto, and I know at least a few other people on the call aren't in Toronto. But I mean, you shared a lot of very valuable insights. So I mean, if I wanted to book a flight, you know, you can. Okay,
One thing on that question, if you have a minute, let's take
Sure.
insurance, for instance. As a resident of Ontario or a business in Ontario, if somebody from Quebec wants to buy insurance, they can buy an airline ticket or buy a package through us, but we cannot sell them insurance.
Okay.
Because some provinces have restrictions for different way you can purchase insurance. So you're living in Quebec and you're buying a package, whether it's a cruise or air or whatever it is from Rome Travel in Toronto. We cannot sell you insurance.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, that's and some provinces are like that in Canada.
Okay.
Just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you very much, Ian. I have any last comments from Andrew and Stefan, but I have exhausted my questions and comments.
No, just want to thank Ian for his time, and I hope the audience got some valuable tips and insightful advice and shared experiences from Ian. This is 30 plus years of experience you just heard in a 45-minute call or plus. So I hope everyone got something from this. I know I did. So thank you again, Ian, for your time.
Thank you. I want to thank you guys very much for having me on, and I look forward to doing some business with everyone, including.
Definitely.
Okay. Look
We're
forward
going to
seeing
Morocco
you.
together, man. We have the tour to Morocco together.
Right. Yeah, I really want to visit Morocco. Yeah, I do. It's been on my bucket list for a number of years, and those are the two. Well, so on the continent, I really would love to do a safari.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, that's
Why?
one of mine.
Why I haven't done it yet is because I don't think I can take those long plane rides anymore. But I got to break it up somehow to get there.
First
Anyway, thank
class.
you very much, guys, for having me on.
Thank you
Thank you,
very,
Ian.
very much. And to the audience, thank you very
Thank
much for
you, everybody, for
spending,
joining.
And if
spending
you
the
need
time with us.
input at any time in the future, let me know.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
day.
Take care.
Thank you. You too.